After viewing the previous section, it is obvious that the use of ABAP Objects is a major component of ABAP programming best practices. This section will explain the reasons why. First, let's quickly review how ABAP has evolved over the years. SAP was originally a mainframe product. The first Unix-based version of SAP arrived in July of 1992. This version consisted of a few basic modules, such as FI and SD. The ABAP language at this point was extremely rudimentary and looked very much like COBOL. As the years went by, the SAP product grew by adding more modules, and the ABAP language also evolved. In April 2001, Release 4.6 arrived. This release was significant for being the first version to support ABAP Objects in a limited fashion. At this time, the class builder was a standalone transaction and not yet integrated into the ABAP workbench. Very soon after, Release 6.10 came out. This was when the Web Application Server technology was introduced and the ABAP Objects environment was greatly improved. At the same time, newer modules such as CRM were added, which made much greater use of ABAP Objects rather than Classic ABAP. Since then, the SAP product has transformed into the NetWeaver platform, with a larger number of modules which use a variety of OO-type languages such as Java and JavaScript, as well as ABAP Objects. In addition to the ABAP Objects core, the language itself has moved away from its COBOL roots and become more of a true object-based language by adding features that exist in other object-oriented languages. There is a new statement that is a constructor for creating data objects and classes. There is a value statement that initializes complex data objects in a single statement instead of having to assign values one component at a time, as was necessary in classic ABAP programming. There is a switch statement that in many circumstances is more useful than the case statement. Method chaining allows the output of one method to be passed directly into the input parameter of another method in a single statement line, instead of having to call the first method to store a value in a work variable, then pass that work variable as a parameter to the second method. You can now declare a variable in the same statement that it is populated with a value, rather than having to declare a list of variables at the start of a program unit. So, a lot of nice functionality is now built into ABAP Objects. For the long-time ABAP programmer though, what are the advantages of starting to use classes and methods instead of classic ABAP function modules? Access to object class components can be controlled by the programmer. This means that when you have a class method that should only be called by another specific method of the same class, you can restrict access to that method from other callers. This is not possible with function modules. All function modules can be called without restriction. It is possible to have multiple instances of the same class within an executable unit of code, whereas only one instance of a function group can exist. Code based on ABAP Objects is truly reusable without having to cut and paste when functionality needs to be replicated in different code units. The ABAP Objects programming environment is much more robust than classic ABAP. Potential errors are caught at design time when using objects, which results in fewer runtime errors. Three fairly common programming errors are shown here: calling a method or function using an incorrect name, passing an incorrect parameter or forgetting it altogether, or passing a parameter of an incorrect data type. Let's see how those errors are handled with calls to function modules and methods.